It is my voice there talking about what my world and my thoughts about things and so on, and it's not filtered through anybody else. It's just pure Nick Cave. Very early on, I felt there were things that I wanted to write about. You know, I really knew there were things like I really wanted to write about, and I've always written about them. You know, and writing narrative songs has always been something I've always really enjoyed doing. It's just, you know, writing stories. It's like, you know, when I can't write any other type of song, when I can't think of what to write in terms of a kind of song that means something to me, or personal song or whatever, it's okay because I can always just sit down and write a story or a you know, a ballad of some sort. So they've always been there. They're very easy things for me to write. I'm more interested in people that fail, and I'm more interested in people that are faulty. I mean, even in my the people that I tend to gravitate towards as friends and stuff like that are generally, I don't know what my friends would think when they hear this, but I mean, they're generally kind of the problematic types of people. And you know, I find people like that interesting, and I find their stories interesting. There's just nothing to me that's, I mean, everyone likes a successful person, I guess, but to me, I've never really found that I have the energy to write about people like that. People I write about have generally kind of got 1 foot. Their morality system is fucked up in some way, I would say, and I just think, to me, it's much more interesting to write about evil things, perhaps, than things that are good.
Virtually all that you are. E is for loving almost everything you do. R is for rape me, and M is for murder me, and A is for answering all my prayers. N is for knowing your lover man's going to be the answer to all of yours. Yeah. Lover man.
I didn't have a bad childhood. I had you know, I had 2 loving parents. And I had my father was I was a country boy. I lived in the country. All the kind of countryside of what I do, in terms of the novel that I wrote, and a lot of the places where my songs are set are very much about the stuff I remember as a child. But my parents were basically very generous, loving people. My mother particularly, and my father was a little more like myself, I guess, in terms of that I think his career and he was an English literature teacher, and then he was a kind of worked with adult education, and he directed plays and stuff like this. So he was, all that sort of stuff was pretty much primarily his major interest in his life, you know, which is kind of similar to me. When I was about 14 or so, he did sit me down, and I remember him reading me the first chapter of Lolita and telling me, this is what you know, this is what literature is all about. And he went through it line by line, and he explained the alliteration and the way in which the words were used and the form and all this sort of stuff. I think he was a little overzealous, and I was a little too young, probably, to really catch it all. But I mean, Lolita is my favourite book to this day. It's something that is stuck there, really.
They shot him in the head, bloody halo like a thick bubble circling his head, and I bellowed in the firmament, looks like the rains are here to stay, and the rain pissed down upon me and washed me all away. So Papa won't leave your head red, Papa won't leave your boy, Papa won't leave your head red, Papa won't leave your boy.
The only thing that I would try and do with my son is to, which I in the end started to rebel against with my father, was that he never really listened to me in terms of what I thought about things. He was really great for saying, sit down son, listen to this, you know, and he'd read this stuff off to me, and it was all kind of him giving to me. And I think that, I think in the end, it would have been great to have felt that I could give something back to my father. I know in the end I used to actually look for literature that he didn't know about. I mean, he was a theatre director, and he knew Shakespeare and all that sort of stuff. And I remember finding kind of French absurdist theatre like Alfred Jarry and stuff like this, which I suddenly realised he didn't know anything about. And I read all this sort of stuff and would say, look, do you know about this? Do you know about this? Like, why don't you know about this? And it became much more like that. It became quite a competitive sort of thing. So with my own son, I would try and encourage him. Hopefully I would can slow down enough in that area to sort of be able to listen to him, you know.
Sunday steals, and a child is born at the brother's heels. Sunday morning, a fist born dead, and a shoebox tied with a ribbon of red.
We had a school band. We had a band at school which Nick was in and I was in, and Phil Culvert, the drummer with the birthday party, was also in that band, and Tracy Pugh, the bassist from the birthday party, eventually was also in that band. But I don't know what we were called. I think we were called something different every time we played.
You know, the birthday party was, a long time ago, and it was a great band, I think, and it was a great little band.
It was a great time. Looking back on it, it was really, I still really like a lot of the music we made then, and think what the band was doing was very exciting and very dangerous, and much more dangerous than just about any group I've ever seen, I think, really. Certainly from the point of view of being on stage, it was very dangerous, or it felt that way.
It was probably more dangerous for him than it was for me, because he was relatively sober. You have a kind of, there's something immortal, a feeling of sort of immortality that you have when you're completely out of your head the whole time.
As I walk these narrow streets, where 1,000,000 passing feet have trod before me, with my guitar in my hand, suddenly I realize nobody knows me.
Nick Cave used to have two major problems: heroin addiction and a bad voice. He's kicked the former and is working on the latter. That's funny.
I took an enormous amount of drugs, I have to say, like a lot of drugs. But I mean, at the same time, I was nearly always capable of doing what I had to do. I was always capable of writing. I always wrote, and no matter what state I was in, I always wrote. No matter what state I was in the night before, I was always up pretty early writing.
When did you quit the drugs?
Well, you know, I haven't quit doing drugs. You know, I still take drugs. I just don't have. I'm just not a junkie. I don't have to. You know, I can go for very long periods of time without having to take drugs or drink or whatever. And you know, I know all about it. I know all about drug taking, I would say. There's not really much left to find out. I know that at some point, somewhere along the line, it ceased to be possible for me to continue my career and live in the same way as I was, to be an active heroin addict, speed addict, all that sort of stuff. There was a time when I had to stop living my life in that way.
I am not afraid to die. Going to war and chill, to objects in their fields, a ragged cup, twisted mop, a face of Jesus in my soup, a sinister dinner deals, a real truly wicked wheels, a hook bone rising from my food, all things either good or bad.
I could never come to terms with saying, all right, that's it, I'm never going to drink again, I'm never going to take drugs again. That was never a realistic option for me. But now, you know, I'm able to. At some point along the way, I learnt that I could actually make a record, go on stage, and also do some basic personal sorts of things without having to drink and without having to take drugs. And that was, I guess, the hugest lesson to be learned, that it's actually possible to write and to stuff like that without being stoned. You know? I used to drink, you know, I wasn't taking that many drugs, but I was drinking a hell of a lot. You know, and you can't, well, I can't really I can't justify being a father, which I'm deeply committed to, and being pissed all the time. It just doesn't, or hungover, all that sort of stuff. It's just not, it's not really right.
When we did From Her to Eternity, Nick just rang me up and asked me if I would like to play guitar on his solo record. I think at that stage it wasn't even intended to be a band that performs live. And of course the first album was recorded with that kind of an attitude.
Well, this is when I used to be good looking, cute and all that sort of stuff. I think this is an interesting record, a faulty record. The production on it is the most bizarre, kind of fucked up production I've ever. Yeah, it's great.
My lady of the various sorrows, some begged, some borrowed, some stolen, some kept safe tomorrow. On an endless night, silver star spangled, the bells from the chapel went jingle, jangle. You love me?
This is my favourite record. My favourite. This record I would say I have the strongest personal attachment to this record. Lyrically, I think it's quite brilliant. As far as, well, I think I'm very proud of this particular record. I think songs like Nobody's Baby now, I think is a great song. I'm really very pleased with that.
On the first day I saw her, I knew she was the one. She stared in my eyes and smiled, for her lips were the color of the roses that grew down the river, all bloody and wild.
When he knocked on my door and entered the room, my trembling subsided in his sure embrace. He would be my first man, and with a careful hand, he wiped out the tears that ran down my face.
What inspired you to do the album?
I think it was an idea that has been floating around in the, with me and in the Bad Seeds for many, many years, to do a record of murder ballads. And I'd recorded 2 songs, O'Malley's Bar, which is 15 minutes long, and Song of Joy, which is also a kind of very long, difficult song. These had been recorded within the last 3 years or so, these 2 songs. And they were floating around, and I was starting to, I don't like songs that I like floating around and not being able, I wasn't unable to put them on any of the other, on Let Love In, they didn't fit on this record and stuff like that. And they both happened to be murder ballads, and I remember Blixer saying, well, why don't you make that murder ballads record you've always wanted to make? And I went, all right, let's do that, we'll do it very quick, make a very quick record, we'll get a few traditional songs, I'll write a few more murder ballads, we'll stick these 2 songs on it, get a whole lot of other musicians to come in and play on it, I'll do duets with various people, and we'll make a very quick, very spirited, sort of funny record about murder. And that's what this record really is. My actual interest in murder is actually quite minimal. It's not my kind of primary interest. I'm interested in the song itself, the song form of the murder ballad, as a little total area where a song can be permitted to happen, where there doesn't have to be any moral foundation for the song. The traditional murder ballad is a song where 2 people enter the song and one of them dies, and there's never any need to explain the motive and things like that. It's just basically a little sordid adventure, and it has its own kind of romantic morality inbuilt into it, and that was kind of what was most interesting to me.
It's certainly the dirtiest record we've made in a long time, so, and that's just, it's not by design, it's just kind of happened that way, so.
I think really in the end, the songs aren't really about murder, they're about storytelling, and they're about rhyming and language and things like that, more than a kind of a deep analysis of murder, for example.
It's a very weird record. It's a very strange record.
If you want to find something which is a serious look at why people murder other people, don't buy this record, because that's not the intention of it. The intention of it is basically it's a comic record.
Come on, kill me! Kill me! Kill me! Kill me! Come in here and fucking try to kill me!
It was his brother who tore the call on the morning of their birth, and as if that sole act of assertion was to set an inverted precedent for inertia in his life to come, Euclid, then unnamed, clutched a hold of his brother's heels and slopped into the world with all the glory of an uninvited guest.
My father's dead. He died when I was like 19 or something like that. But I know he used to have, I found this actually, a desk full of half-finished manuscripts, novels that he tried to start writing, and some plays that he started writing. And he did write short stories, and he got them in sort of magazines and stuff like that. But there was this kind of desk of shame or something like this, of all these sort of things that he tried to start that he never finished. And the writing of the Ass or the Angel for me was, there was something that I couldn't stop. Once I started writing that, I simply couldn't stop writing it. And once it was finished, and published, I really, it was really like, well, I actually wrote one, Dad, type of thing. And actually, after having written that, the feeling for writing another one has disappeared, really. I just don't really feel like writing another one for some reason. I think I did that for my father, or against my father, or something like that. I'm not sure, but I'm sure he had something to do with it.
The noonday sun spun in the sky like a molten bolt and hammered down upon the tin roof and tarred plank sides of the shack. Inside sat Pa at his table, surrounded by his ingenious contraptions of springs and steel, sweating midst the bleeding heat while greasing his traps and trying in vain to closet his ears from the drunken ravings of his wife.
You know, I mean, if I wrote another book now, it would be very different than that. But at that time, it was very much, you know, something from my soul kind of onto the page. Yeah. Well, I'd like to turn my career into a kind of desk job of some sort. I'd like ultimately to be able to sit at a desk and write music and write literature and stuff like that without having to do too much of this, all the other shit that's involved, like touring and stuff like that. I mean, I love to play live concerts, but you know, I'm getting too old to go on tour or something like that. I don't really enjoy it.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow.
They'll learn much more than I'll ever know.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
There are a lot of things that he writes has a very ironic level to it. They're not meant to be taken straight. If they would take Nick's lyrics serious, then they must have an impression of him which is totally wrong, I would say.
There is an element of humour in my stuff. In the new record is a straight comic record, but in this record there is an element of humour. But at the same time, I don't think that a lot of these records are, in a way, deeply depressed records, I think. I think that when I wrote them, I wasn't that happy. And today, sitting here, I'm not happy with the world, and I'm not happy with humanity, and I'm not really happy with the subjects that I write about. And I don't really, I don't see that as a fault in what I do. I don't see my role as an artist as being one where I'm supposed to write songs that congratulate and applaud society and humanity for being the way it is. You know, and that goes for my own actions as well. A lot of my writing is about myself and about how I've behaved and about how I see things, and which is not always honourable or not, you know, whatever. So, you know, I think that there is a strong self-deprecating kind of humour that runs through things. There's in a lot of the narrative story type things, there is a much broader, funnier side to the way I write, and there is a side to it which is frustrated and unhappy with the way things are, you know.
And the wind did howl, and the wind did blow, la 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 la, la 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 lee. A little bird looked down on Henry Lee.
I don't know what you're all about, but I like the way you handle yourself on stage. But you need to start feeling better about yourself. Welcome to the band.
I feel all right about myself.
I feel my life is, at the moment, that I feel the older I get, the more I'm able to cope with things. I'm able to cope with things far better now than I was 3 years ago or whatever. Simply because I have a much better understanding of the way things work these days. I have a much better understanding of the destructive side of my personality, which causes me a lot of grief, and I have far more access to the constructive side of my personality, which is a much more spiritual, much more a side that's much more willing to do things for other people and to look after my son and to be responsible for certain things. So I feel very strongly that there are these two parts at play in my personality, and I can recognise them much easier. I know I can sort of take a, I don't know, Buddhist approach or something like that and stand back and say, look, I'm depressed at the moment, but that's just the way things go, and I know that, you know, next week it may not be that way. So I'm, you know, I have a much healthier sort of way of living, in a way, you know, I would say.
And the wind did roll, and the wind did moan, la 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 la, la 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 la. A little bird let down on Henry Lee.
Yeah.